Hello, my name is Cassandra Thayer, and I have done my project on black-legged ticks and their disease rates in the state of New York. I decided upon this topic because I am an animal control officer in the state of Massachusetts, and unfortunately, I come into contact with ticks quite frequently. For me, this means that I need to be vigilant about checking myself for ticks after being outdoors or coming into any contact with animals. Over recent years, I have noticed an uprise in tick populations, mostly due to finding them on myself and animals more frequently. Some scientists believe that this is a result from global warming. Due to the warmer climates around the globe, tick populations never really have a large die-off period and can be found throughout the year. When talking with pet parents, it used to be the norm that you could be lax with flea and tick preventative in the winter because it was very unlikely that your animal would come into contact with them. Now I recommend outdoor pet parents treat their pets year-round. Additionally, ticks are a concern because of the disease that they can pass on to both humans and animals. For my literature review, I chose an article from 2015 that focused on larval and nymph numbers in small mammals, as well as temperature fluctuations during the study and how they affected the results. For the study, they used 19 years of data from a small mammal trapping program at the Carey Institute of Ecosystem Studies in Millbrook, New York. Mammals were trapped with Sherman traps in an 11 by 11 grid in an oak-dominated forest. This study maintained a trap mark recapture technique as well. Animals that were trapped were given a numbered metal ear tag for later identification, weighed, sexed, and approximately aged. Additionally, while the animals were captured, researchers counted the number of larval and nymphal ticks on their head and ears. To interpret the data, researchers used linear regression to relate the timing of the larval peak to the cumulative days in degrees above 0 Celsius by the end of August, and the nymphal peak to cumulative degree days above 0 Celsius by the end of May. Additionally, they used a z-score test to directly compare the regression coefficients. These results showed that larval burdens, meaning how many were on the animal, were found to be higher in mice than in chipmunks by almost 3 times, and nymphal burdens were more than 7 times higher on chipmunks than on mice. They also noted that there was a substantial climate warming at the field site between the years of 1994 and 2012. Their predictions show that climate warming by the 2050s is expected to substantially advance tick phenology in New York. Also, results suggest that human risk of tick-borne pathogen exposure will increase if tick survival due to climate warming continues. The data that I am using for the project is from a study on nymph black-legged ticks in all counties of New York State, excluding New York City, which were collected and tested for 4 different transmittable diseases. These diseases are Lyme disease, anaplasmosis, babesiosis, and tick-borne recurring fever. The Latin names are listed in the second column on the slide, but I'm terrible at pronouncing them. Data was collected during the months of May to September from 2008 to 2017, though not all counties received consistent testing each year. The research is done yearly by the New York Office of Public Health and the New York Bureau of Communicable Disease Control. Though the information on their website does not specifically state how the ticks were collected, the 2 most common methods for collecting ticks in the field are dragging and flagging. These methods involve simulating a host walking through the area by dragging or flagging a sheet through the area for a tick to grab onto. For these descriptive statistics, I wanted to show the difference between an urban county and a more rural county as defined by the Office of Management and Budget of New York. Albany is considered a more urban county, while Columbia is more rural. I also chose 2 counties that were studied for the same amount of time so that the results would be more comparable to each other. The null and alternative hypotheses are as follows. The null hypothesis is that rural counties in New York are greater than urban counties in their percentage of tick pathogens. The alternative hypothesis is that urban counties are greater than or equal to rural counties in their percentage of tick pathogens. This analysis gave us a few different types of information. As you can see in the table below, many of the ticks were infected with Lyme disease. This is one of the more commonly talked about diseases that many people and animals can become infected with. This result comes as no surprise, as many of us have heard of this disease before. This was found to be the case in both Albany and Columbia counties. The average for ticks infected with Lyme disease for Albany County is 26.75%, which is far higher than the other diseases. The average for ticks infected with Lyme disease for Columbia County is 26.8%, which is only 0.5% higher than Albany's average. It is also worthy of note that Albany's averages for anaplasmosis and babesiosis are higher than Columbia's. I also created a bar graph using this same information, once again comparing the averages of the infections between Albany and Columbia. As we can see, infection rates throughout the study were much higher in Albany than they were in Columbia. Therefore, we would reject the null hypothesis that rural counties have higher infection rates and instead accept the alternative hypothesis. Based on these results, we would recommend that public health departments do not lessen their approaches when working with public health issues in urban settings. People and pets are at risk no matter where they live, and it is evident that ticks do not mind living in an urban area. In fact, I would recommend, based on these results, that public health departments make sure that they have a strong stance on these diseases in urban settings because people may be letting their guard down on prevention. Thank you, and have a great summer.